Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm 26 years old. And for most of my life, I was scared of speaking English. Not because English is difficult, not because I didn't know vocabulary, but because I couldn't speak without pausing. I couldn't speak without fear. I knew what I wanted to say. I had the words in my head. I could write them. I could understand everything people said. But when it was time to speak, I would pause. My mouth would stop. My brain would go blank, my hands would shake. Sometimes I would say just one word, then silence. A long, heavy silence. People looked at me like I didn't know anything, like I was dumb. But I wasn't dumb. I just didn't know how to make my thoughts come out smoothly in English. I live in a small town, but I always had big dreams. I wanted to work in an international company. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to speak to people from other countries. I wanted to learn from the best minds. And for all of that, I needed English. Every job interview I went to, they asked, "Can you speak English fluently?" Every online course I wanted to take, it was in English. Every good book, every video, every opportunity was behind an English door. And that door was locked because I couldn't speak without pausing. Do you know what it feels like when you want to say something, but your tongue won't move? It feels like drowning, but slowly. It feels like your voice is trapped in your body. You sit in meetings wanting to say your idea, but you stay silent. You meet people from other countries wanting to speak, but you stay quiet. You want to make friends, give opinions, share stories, but instead you just smile and nod. Every pause killed my confidence. One night I was sitting alone in my small room. No light, no noise, just silence. And I thought, am I really going to live like this? Am I really going to stay silent forever? And then I said something out loud. Not to anyone, just to myself. I said, "Daniel, it's time. You can't wait anymore." That night, I made a decision. A real decision. I didn't say, "I want to improve my grammar." I didn't say I will memorize 100 new words. I said I will train my mouth because my mouth was weak because my fear lived in my tongue. And I knew this truth. If I train my mouth to speak, I will stop pausing. If I stop pausing, I will speak with flow. If I speak with flow, the world will listen. Clears throat. That night I started, and this is my journey. Not the journey of a genius, not the journey of a native speaker, just a simple person like you who was tired of being quiet, tired of being afraid, tired of waiting. In the next chapters, I will show you exactly how I trained my mouth. Not with books, not with courses, but with my own broken English and a lot of courage. I will show you the exact techniques that changed me. I will show you how I went from pausing every 2 seconds to speaking English naturally like a stream of water. And in the final chapter, you will hear me speak not perfectly, but fluently. And when you hear it, you will believe it's possible for you too. Now, subscribe to our channel because your voice deserves to be heard in English, and we'll help you speak it. Chapter 1. The mirror and the silence. The morning after I made that decision, the decision to stop running from English, I woke up feeling nervous, not excited, not powerful, just nervous. My heart was beating fast, my hands were cold. It felt like I was about to walk on stage in front of thousands of people. But there was no stage, no audience, just me and a mirror. I walked to my bathroom slowly. It was small, a little dirty, with a cracked mirror that had been there since I moved into this old apartment. The light above the mirror flickered like a dying firefly, but I didn't fix it. That day, I wasn't there to look perfect. I was there to change something that had been stuck inside me for years. My voice. Can I even say one sentence? I stood in front of the mirror and just stared. I looked into my own eyes. They didn't look brave. They looked tired. Tired of pausing. Tired of hiding. I opened my mouth to say something, and I froze. My mind went blank. I already knew the sentence I had planned the night before. I am Daniel. That's it. Just 3 words. but my lips stayed closed. It was like someone had pressed pause inside my throat. I took a deep breath and whispered, "I am Daniel." It didn't sound strong. It didn't sound fluent, but it was real. It was a beginning. The mirror became my first audience. I repeated the sentence again. I am Daniel. Then again, I am Daniel. 10 times, 20 times, slowly, clearly, louder each time. At first, I sounded like a nervous student, but after a few minutes, I began to sound more like a person who was trying. Then I said, "I want to speak English." It felt strange. The words felt heavy inside my mouth, like I was holding something too big for my tongue. But I kept going. Sometimes I said the sentence wrong. I said, "I wants to speak English." But I didn't stop. That was the first lesson the mirror taught me. Fluency is not about saying everything perfectly. It's about not stopping when things go wrong. That day, I practiced in the mirror for 5 full minutes. Here's what I said again and again. I am Daniel. I want to speak English. I will speak fluently. I am not afraid anymore. I believe I can do this. Every sentence was short, but every sentence felt like a step forward. Speaking to the mirror is not just practice. It's facing your fear. It's learning to look at your own eyes and say, "This voice belongs to me." I wasn't performing. I wasn't impressing anyone. I was simply practicing being me in English. And that was more powerful than I expected. Not fluency, not perfection, but control. For the first time, I had controlled a moment in English, and that gave me something very important, a little belief. That belief became the seed of everything I built after. Chapter 2, one breath at a time. On day 2, I stood in front of the mirror again. Same cracked glass, same nervous hands. But something inside me was a little different. I had spoken out loud yesterday. I had felt the sound of English leave my mouth, and I had survived. Today, I wanted to take the next step. But as I started to speak longer sentences, I noticed a strange pattern. I would say, I want to speak English. I couldn't finish the sentence smoothly. I was chopping the sentence into small broken pieces, and each pause made the fear come back. That's when I realized maybe I'm pausing because I don't know how to breathe while speaking. Most people don't talk about this. They talk about grammar, vocabulary, confidence, but no one talks about breath. Yet every time I paused, it wasn't just because I forgot the word. It was also because my lungs were empty. That evening, I sat down with a notebook and wrote, "Speak one full sentence in one breath, without stopping." I stood in front of the mirror and practiced. I took a deep breath, then said, "I want to speak English without pausing." It came out slow and shaky, but it came out. Then again, "I want to speak English without pausing." Then another sentence. I am training my mouth to move smoothly. Another, my fear is smaller than my dream. Each time I focused on 2 things. 1, finish the full sentence. 2, don't stop in the middle. What happened after 10 repetitions? My voice got louder. My tongue got faster. And most important, my mind stopped hesitating because now I wasn't just speaking. I was speaking with a clear start and end, before my brain would panic halfway. Now it knew the sentence had a finish line. Here's how I practiced every morning. I picked 5 short sentences. I took a deep breath before each. I said them out loud. 1 breath, 1 sentence. I repeated each 5 to 10 times. I increased the sentence length over time. Examples I used. I love learning English every day. Speaking slowly helps me build confidence. I am training my mouth, not just my brain. My mistakes are part of my journey. Fluency comes from repetition. When you speak in one breath, you stop overthinking. You stop editing your sentence in the middle. You train your brain to stay calm. You teach your mouth to move with confidence. You sound more natural, even if the grammar isn't perfect. Most beginners speak like this. I want to speak English, but fluent speakers speak like this. I want to speak English smooth, steady, confident. That's what this technique gave me. Something amazing happened. I was walking to buy groceries, and in my head I said, I need to buy vegetables, then I'll make rice. Then I'll read something in English, all in one thought. No pause, no translation, no fear. I didn't say it out loud, but the voice inside me had changed. It wasn't broken anymore. It was whole. That night, I looked in the mirror and said, today I trained my mouth, and I'm proud of myself. It wasn't perfect, but it was smooth and it came out in one breath. Chapter 3. My silent mistake. I was translating everything. Even after a week of mirror practice and one breath speaking, I started to notice something strange. Some days I could speak 5 full sentences without stopping. Other days I couldn't speak even one simple sentence. It confused me. Why am I improving one day and failing the next? I started to observe myself like a scientist. I paid attention to my own thoughts, especially before I spoke English. And then I found the truth. A painful, honest truth. I was still translating every sentence in my head. I didn't think in English, I only spoke it. Let me explain what was happening inside me. Let's say I wanted to say, I went to the market today. But what happened first? Step 1, I thought the sentence in my native language. Step 2, I quickly translated each word into English. Step 3, I tried to speak the sentence. Step 4, I paused halfway because I got stuck. That was the problem. I wasn't speaking with my mouth. I was speaking with Google Translate inside my brain, and it was making me pause every single time. I was not stupid. I was just doing it the hard way. Imagine trying to write with your left hand if you're right-handed. You can do it. But it's slow, uncomfortable, and full of mistakes. That's what translating is. It's writing with the wrong hand in your own brain. I realized that fluency is not about just speaking. It's about thinking directly in English. No middle step, no language in between, no delay. I decided to train my thoughts, not just my mouth. It was the biggest mindset shift of my journey. Until that day, I thought speaking practice meant talking out loud, using new words, learning pronunciation. But now I understood something much deeper. Fluency starts with silent thoughts. If I could train my brain to think in English, I wouldn't need to translate. I wouldn't need to pause. So I created a brand new habit. I turned every small activity into a chance to think in English. From morning to night, I forced my brain to stay in English mode. When I brushed my teeth, I am brushing. It's cold this morning. I need to be quick. When I made breakfast, this bread is soft. I need more butter. The pan is hot. When I walked to work, that man is wearing a black shirt. There's traffic today. I feel sleepy. These were not beautiful sentences. They were not advanced, but they were in English. And that was the point. I didn't wait for practice time anymore. Every moment became part of my training. Standing in line, washing dishes, sitting on a bus, waiting for an email to load. I used those empty seconds to build something powerful, a brain that could think in English by default. Many times my mind ran back to my old language. I would forget I was supposed to think in English. I would get tired and go back to what felt easier, but every time I caught myself doing that, I gently pulled myself back. No, Daniel, try again. English only. It was like training a wild animal. You don't punish it, you guide it. I remember the moment clearly. I was walking back from the store. I had bought eggs, milk, and tomatoes. Suddenly I realized I had been talking to myself in English the entire walk without effort, without translation, without fear. It felt like I had moved to a new city. Inside my own mind that day, I wrote something in my journal. Today, for the first time, I didn't translate. I thought in English from start to finish. It felt like freedom. And from that day forward, my progress became 10 times faster, because now my thoughts and my mouth were finally speaking the same language. Chapter 4. I found my rhythm. Shadowing changed my voice. Around day 25 of my journey, I felt more comfortable speaking, more stable. But there was still something missing. My sentences were clear, but they felt mechanical, like a robot. I didn't sound natural. I didn't sound real. Sometimes, even when I didn't pause, I still didn't sound fluent. That's when I discovered something that changed everything. A technique I had never heard before. Shadowing. Shadowing is not reading, it's not writing, it's not even speaking your own ideas. Shadowing is this. Listen to someone speaking English, then repeat what they said exactly the way they said it. Same words, same tone, same speed, same feeling. It's like being an actor and copying the performance of a master. I found a motivational video on YouTube. The speaker was powerful. His voice had confidence. His words flowed like a river. I played the first sentence. He said, "Success doesn't come overnight. It comes with practice." I paused the video. I repeated it. "Success doesn't come overnight. It comes with practice." Then I played the next sentence, then paused, then repeated. Sentence by sentence, voice by voice, emotion by emotion. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just saying English words. I was feeling them. My tongue learned how to move with rhythm. My mouth started copying natural pauses. My voice started changing shape. It was no longer about what I said. It was about how I said it. I made it part of my daily practice. Every day I did this. I picked a 2-minute video, motivational speech, vlog, short interview. I played the first sentence, paused, repeated the sentence with the same tone, moved to the next. Did this for 10 minutes each morning. Some days I practiced with energy. Other days I was quiet and slow, but I always did it. After 7 days, I recorded my voice. I spoke for 2 minutes, just a random story. When I listened to it later, I had to pause the recording because I didn't recognize my own voice. It was me, but different. I sounded confident, not perfect, but present. My voice had life, my words had feeling, and my sentences had flow. Most people think fluency is about words, but real fluency is also about melody. Shadowing trained my mouth to move like a fluent speaker, and that changed everything. I ended that week with a realization. I can speak now, not just because I have the words, but because I have the rhythm. I wasn't scared of English anymore. I was learning to sound like someone who belonged in the language. Not a visitor, not a stranger, but someone who had found his voice inside a new world. Chapter 5. I finally spoke in public and froze. By the end of the first month, I had made so much progress. I could speak in front of the mirror for 10 minutes without stopping. Think in English for long stretches of time. Speak short stories using the one-breath rule. Shadow native speakers and copy their rhythm. I thought I was finally ready to speak to someone in real life. And then it happened. Unexpectedly. One morning I was at work. We had a weekly team meeting. Usually I just listened quietly. I never spoke unless someone directly asked me. But that day our manager looked at me and said, "Daniel, can you quickly explain what you're working on this week?" It was a simple question, and I had the answer in my mind. But the moment every eye turned toward me, my heart started beating fast. My throat tightened, and all my training disappeared in 2 seconds. I opened my mouth and said, I working on project, silence, complete silence. My manager waited politely, but I could feel the energy shift in the room. My confidence collapsed. I finally muttered, "Sorry, I will write it later," and I sat down. Inside, I felt broken, embarrassed, exposed. I thought I was fluent, but I wasn't fluent under pressure. When I got home that evening, I sat in the dark for 20 minutes. No videos, no music, no phone, just me. And the truth, I could speak English alone, but I couldn't speak English when it mattered. I had trained my mouth. I had trained my mind, but I had never trained my emotions. In that meeting, I didn't forget English. I forgot how to stay calm. That night, I wrote something painful in my journal. Fluency isn't just about speaking. It's about speaking while scared. speaking while nervous, speaking while being watched. So, I made a new goal. Not just to speak fluently, but to speak fluently when I feel fear. That became the new challenge. I built a new kind of practice. I stood in front of the mirror. I imagined people watching me. I pretended I was in a meeting. I gave myself 30 seconds to explain a task. I forced myself to keep going. Even when my heart was racing, I didn't wait for the real world to give me another test. I created that test for myself every morning. It was uncomfortable, but necessary because that's how I trained myself to stay calm. Not by avoiding fear, but by learning how to breathe through it. I began to study how fluent people pause. I noticed something surprising. Even fluent speakers pause, but their pauses sound intentional, not broken. They used something I had never practiced before, something that changed everything in the next chapter. Chapter 6 are the sentence connectors that saved me. After that meeting, I spent 2 weeks focusing only on one thing, not freezing. I knew that if I paused awkwardly, my confidence would collapse again. So I studied how fluent speakers continued speaking even when they didn't know exactly what to say next. What I discovered changed the way I viewed English forever. They weren't avoiding pauses. They were using something called sentence connectors. They're simple, common words or phrases that keep your mouth moving while your brain thinks. They act like bridges between thoughts. Here are some that I noticed. Actually, by the way. Anyway, let me think. So, basically that being said, the point is these little phrases helped speakers sound fluent, even when they were still thinking. At first, I practiced alone. I stood in the mirror and practiced transitions. So, basically, I've been working on a few ideas lately. Actually, I think the project is moving slower than expected. Let me think. Oh yes, we also added a new feature. Then I practiced them in my one-breath sentences. Then in my 60 conned timer drills. Then in my recordings, I wrote down 10 sentence starters that could buy me time. Let me explain. To be honest, what I mean is, well, from my point of view, so the way I see it, here's the thing. Now, the interesting part is if I had to describe it, that reminds me of in simple words. Every time I forgot a word or felt panic, I used one of these to continue. I asked myself fake questions and answered them aloud. Question, Daniel, how do you feel about this week's goals? Answer. Well, from my point of view, things are going well. Actually, we've made more progress than last week, so basically, we're ahead of schedule. Question. What are your future plans? Answer. That's a good question. Let me think. I want to keep improving my English for sure. And professionally, I'm aiming for a leadership role. The point is, I'm trying to grow in every way. It felt awkward at first, but within days I noticed something important. I stopped freezing. I kept speaking even when I didn't know the perfect words. That was fluency, because they help you keep your mouth moving while you think. Sound more natural. Avoid awkward silence. Control the speed of conversation. Sound more confident even when unsure. They are small, but powerful, like bricks that build the road as you walk on it. It was a team discussion. Someone asked me a question that I wasn't fully prepared for, but I stayed calm. I took a small breath and said, "That's a really interesting question. Let me think." I'd say the main reason is because we want to increase efficiency. So in simple words, it's about saving time. I paused and waited. My manager nodded. That was it. No fear, no freezing, just flow. That night, I smiled at myself in the mirror. I didn't pause today. I spoke, I flowed, I survived. And not only did I survive, I spoke with rhythm. That's what sentence connectors gave me. A rope to hold on to when the sentence in my mind wasn't ready yet. And that rope saved me again and again. Chapter 7. 60 seconds without stopping. After learning to speak in one breath, after mastering sentence connectors, and after building confidence through shadowing, I still noticed something frustrating. In real conversations, I couldn't speak for long. My ideas were short. My answers were short. I felt like my English had no depth. It wasn't that I didn't have thoughts. It's just that I couldn't hold them together while speaking, especially when I was nervous. I needed to train for real-life moments, not just mirrors, not just rehearsals, but moments where someone asks you a question and expects a full response. One evening, I opened the stopwatch app on my phone. I stood in front of the mirror and I said out loud, "Daniel, speak in English for 60 seconds. Don't stop. Don't pause. Don't fix. Just speak." I took a breath and started. Okay, today I want to talk about something I learned this week. Actually, I think I learned that speaking without stopping is very difficult because sometimes we think too much and our brain gets confused. And I think the best way is maybe, I don't know, just trying. I looked at the timer 32 seconds, and I was already lost. I had practiced so much. I had improved so much. But still, I couldn't speak for 60 seconds. Not because I didn't know the words, but because my focus kept breaking. Then I remembered something I had read once. Fluency is not about speed. It's about staying inside the sentence until it's complete. So I created a new rule for myself. Every day I would speak for 60 seconds. Not fast, not perfect, just non-stop. My 60-second rule. Every morning I picked one topic, my morning routine, why I like Sundays, how I learned English, what I do when I feel nervous, the most interesting person I know, and I followed this structure. Start with the sentence opener. Let me tell you about use at least one connector halfway, actually. Or the point is, don't pause more than 2 seconds anywhere. Keep going even if I repeat myself. End with a sentence like, "That's all for now," or, "So that's my answer." I couldn't finish a full minute without forgetting my point, repeating the same phrase, pausing in panic, saying, okay, every 5 seconds. Every 5, 2. But I kept going, because I knew you don't train fluency by waiting for comfort. You train fluency by speaking through the discomfort. The topic was my favorite food. I started speaking. Let me tell you about my favorite food. Actually, I love spicy food. I think it makes me feel more awake. My favorite dish is something my mother used to make when I was a child. It had rice, vegetables, and this strong flavor. Even now, when I taste something similar, I remember my childhood. So basically, food is not just food for me. It's a memory. That's why I like cooking sometimes. It brings back that feeling. Anyway, that's why spicy food is my favorite. I stopped the timer. 61 seconds. My eyes filled with tears. Not because I was proud, but because I finally felt like a real speaker, a real person telling a real story in real English. Because it teaches you how to keep moving when your brain feels tired. How to finish your thought, even when you forget a word. How to sound more complete and intelligent. How to stop depending on perfect grammar. How to stop panicking after 10 seconds. This one technique took my fluency to a new level, and it prepared me for something even harder. Chapter 8. I recorded my voice and hated it. After I started speaking for 60 seconds a day, I thought I was improving well, but I couldn't really know because I never listened to myself from the outside. Then one day, I had this idea. What if I record my voice while doing my 60-second speaking challenge and then listen to it like I'm the audience? The idea scared me, but I knew it was necessary, so I did it. Day 1, I pressed record. I chose a topic. My daily routine. I pressed the red record button and I clears throat. Spoke. I wake up at 7. I make tea. I sometimes read a book, then I start work. Then I sometimes feel tired in the morning, but I try to keep going. After 1 minute, I pressed stop and listened. What I heard surprised me. Even though I had been practicing for weeks, I sounded flat, slow, a little uncertain, like I was thinking too hard. My pronunciation was okay, but my energy was missing. And there were moments where I didn't sound sure of myself. I felt a little disappointed. Is this really what I sound like? But then I reminded myself, you're not listening to judge. You're listening to grow. So I made a plan. Every night I would record 1 minute of speaking, and then I would listen with a notebook in my hand. I would write down what I did well, where I paused, which words I repeated too much, where my voice dropped in energy, which sentences sounded strong. My voice changed. Not magically, not suddenly, but slowly, I started fixing things. I smiled while speaking so I sounded more warm. I paused less in the middle of sentences. I replaced with better connectors. I added more details in my answers. I spoke with more clarity and confidence. I wasn't just practicing, I was studying myself. Because you become your own teacher. You don't need someone to correct you. Your ears will tell you what to fix. And when you see your growth over a week, you become addicted to it. I started enjoying the sound of my own voice, not because it was perfect, but because it was getting stronger. And that's when you know you're on the right path. I went back to day 1 and listened to the first thing I had recorded. It was painful. I sounded so unsure, so slow, so broken. Then I listened to today's recording. I was clear. I was calm. I was complete. The difference was real. And it gave me something even better than fluency. Proof. Proof that I had changed. Proof that this journey was working. Proof that I was becoming someone I never thought I could be. A fluent speaker. Chapter 9. The final routine that rewired my voice. By this point, I had collected tools, mirror practice, one-breath sentences, thinking in English, shadowing, connectors, recording, 60-second challenges. Each tool was powerful, but scattered. I was improving, but I was also inconsistent. Some days I felt fluent. Other days I felt like I was starting from zero. I realized something important. It's not the practice you do once, it's the practice you repeat forever, without excuses, that rewires your voice. So I made a decision. If I want to speak English without pausing for the rest of my life, I need a structure that lives inside my day. No more casual learning, no more random motivation. It was time to build something permanent. I called it my mouth training hour, and I treated it like gym time. Sacred, unbreakable, non-negotiable. This is what I did. Step 1. 10 minutes mirror practice. Confidence activation. I stood tall. I looked into my own eyes. And I spoke 5 simple sentences again and again with clarity and courage. Even on days when I felt tired or slow, I stood there and said, I am training my voice. I am not afraid to speak. I don't need to be perfect. I speak with flow. I respect my journey. I use my reflection to reconnect with my reason, because without belief, there is no fluency. Step 2, 10 minutes, one breath speaking. I picked 5 real-life sentences. For example, I want to ask for help, but I feel shy. This project is moving slower than we expected. Let me explain my idea in simple terms. I'm still working on improving my communication. I believe speaking is a muscle, not magic. I said each sentence 10 times. 1 breath, 1 sentence, no pause. It felt like weight training for my mouth. And with each repetition, the words flowed smoother. I picked a video, a speech, a podcast, an interview. I listened, paused, copied the sentence with full expression. Then again, then again. Some days I chose slow speakers, other days fast speakers. I didn't care how difficult it was. I was learning not just to speak, but to speak like someone who meant every word. Step 4. 10 minutes, 60 seconds speaking. I picked one topic. I set the timer, and I spoke for 60 seconds without stopping. I used connectors. I used feeling. I used personal stories. And after speaking, I immediately recorded my next try. I compared both recordings and wrote what improved. This was my favorite part because it forced me to function under pressure. Step 5. 10 minutes. Silent thinking in English. I turned off all devices. I walked slowly in my room and I thought in English about my day, my emotions, or my future. If I couldn't find a word, I described it in other words. For example, I didn't know the word for disappointed, so I said to myself, I feel low because something didn't go the way I wanted. It trained my brain to become independent, to speak even without the perfect word. That's fluency. Step 6. 10 minutes. Listening to my old voice. Each night before sleep, I played a recording from 1 week ago. I listened without judgment. Then I said out loud, this was me. But now I speak better. And then I recorded my current voice and compared the two. No motivation video in the world can give you what this gives. Proof, progress, power. This was my system. And it rewired my mouth permanently because repetition plus emotion plus structure equals transformation. What changed after 30 days of this system? Everything. My pauses turned into transitions. My hesitation turned into rhythm. My fear turned into silence. My silence turned into sound. And my sound became my story. But I still hadn't tested one thing. Could I speak in front of many people and not break? The test came soon. Chapter 10. The day I spoke without pausing. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. We had a company town hall. About 40 people were present, including some new managers. It was a casual meeting, but people were encouraged to share ideas. As the discussion moved forward, my manager said, Daniel, I know you've been working on the new client workflow. Would you like to walk us through the logic behind it? Everyone turned their heads toward me, and for a full second I felt the old fear return. My throat tightened. My legs felt heavy. But then I smiled because I had trained for this. Every morning, every evening alone, in silence, in shame, in repetition, I had trained for this moment. I stood up, calm, balanced, focused, and I spoke. Sure. Let me explain the structure in simple terms. Basically, the workflow begins with identifying the primary client need and then mapping that to our available team resources. Once the requirement is matched, we move into phase 2. Actually, one thing we realized last week was that step 2 was too slow, so we adjusted the internal handoff timing. That being said, we're still experimenting with a few edge cases, but the early results have been really promising. So, in short, the entire logic is built around clarity and speed. Silence. But it wasn't the kind of silence I had known before. It wasn't the silence of fear. It was the silence of respect. People were nodding. One of the new managers even took notes. My voice didn't pause. My thoughts didn't break. My body didn't tremble. I had spoken English for over 3 minutes. Without freezing, without panicking, without losing myself, that night I sat on my bed alone, quiet, grateful. I didn't play music. I didn't watch a show. I just replayed the moment in my mind. Not to brag, but to remember, to honor the journey. Because the boy who couldn't say, I am Daniel, without shaking, had just explained a business system in English to an entire room of professionals with rhythm, clarity, and power. If you're struggling to speak English, please hear me. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you're slow. It's not because you're weak. It's because no one taught you the truth. That fluency is not just grammar. It is courage. It is muscle. It is practice. It is falling and getting up 1,000 times. And most of all, fluency is not a talent. It is a daily decision. If I could speak fluently after years of hesitation and shame, you can too. Just train your mouth every day, no matter what. Because one day you will speak, and the world will finally hear what has lived inside you for so long. And in that moment, you will realize you were never afraid of English. You were just waiting to become who you were meant to be. Fluent, free, and finally heard. I didn't become someone new. I became someone I had buried under fear. And when I finally trained my mouth to speak English without pausing, everything changed. I got promoted. I traveled alone. I started a YouTube channel. I found my voice. I found peace. If you're still silent, still scared, I was just like you. But fluency doesn't appear. You build it. So start. Even if your voice shakes. Even if your grammar is wrong. Because English is not just a skill. It's your confidence, your freedom, your voice, and your voice deserves to be heard. Start speaking today and never stop again.